Hey everyone! Today I'm going to be showing you how I like to make my glass painting palettes. This is going to be the cheapest palette that you ever invest in, and a glass palette is really the best palette you can use in my opinion. When you use a glass palette, you're going to end up wasting less paint because you can scrape every little bit off of it. It makes mixing your colors so much more nice and easy. And the cleanup is super simple and easy. You just scrape the dried paint off with a paint scraper and it's ready to use again. So I got this idea when I was watching a TV artist. Maybe some of you have heard of him, Roger Bansimer. He uses a glass palette that looks as though it is homemade. So I figured it's simple enough to make my own. And I've been using mine for a while and loving it, so I really wanted to show you guys how I do mine. I've noticed now on YouTube that there are a lot of YouTube artists doing the same thing, but I think mine's a little bit different. So I thought it would be worth sharing my technique on making these glass palettes with you guys. So that's what I'm going to do in this video, and I'm going to do that right now. Let's go. To make this glass palette, you're going to need a piece of glass. Surprise, surprise. So I went to the dollar store and I just got this document holder, which is basically just a piece of glass with a hardboard holder and some clips on the back so that I wouldn't be wasting as much if I bought a frame. So this only cost me $1.50, so that's super cheap. But an even better option is if you have a piece of artwork that you are framing. Normally if your artwork is acrylic or oil paints, you don't put glass over top of it. So you can use the spare glass from a frame in that case, and it costs you even less. So you're going to save yourself $1.50 or however much you would spend on buying a piece of glass. So now I just have to get this out of the package so we can move on. So now with your piece of glass separated from frame or backing or anything like that, you're just going to place a piece of scrap cardboard or paper underneath it just to protect your working surface from any mess that we're going to make, and we are going to be making a mess. So then you'll just grab something you can mix some paint on, and you're going to need some acrylic paints. You can use whatever brand you like, and you're going to need a black and a white so that we can mix a gray and then a little bit of yellow just to warm that gray up so that it's not so cool. We're going to be mixing a neutral middle gray tone. If you're not quite sure what a neutral middle gray tone should look like, the easiest way is to either look it up on the internet, or you can even get a little swatch from the paint store and just get somebody to help you to find the perfect neutral middle gray tone. As for me, I had this pad of disposable paper palettes that come in a neutral gray, and I'm just going to be trying to match my color to that color. So I'm just going to go ahead and mix my black and my white, and I've squirted way too much black. You really only need a drop of black for a nice pile of white because the black is so strong. And I'm just going to mix that together until I get a gray that is slightly lighter than my gray reference color. And the reason why I want it to be slightly lighter is because acrylic paints will dry slightly darker than what they look whenever they're wet. So just keep that in mind. Next, you're just going to start mixing in some yellow very gradually, just a little bit at a time until you reach the desired warmth of that gray. Once your gray is the perfect value and temperature, you guessed it, we're going to paint one side of our glass gray. It's also a really good idea to have a dish of water nearby in case your paint ends up being too dry. It will help you spread it a little bit more evenly, but don't add too much water because you want your paint to be nice and thick and have really good coverage. Some of you might be asking, what is the point of painting it gray? And this is simply to help you better gauge your color values, and a neutral gray helps you better gauge your color temperatures. For example, if you're mixing your colors on a white background, your colors can tend to look much darker than they actually are, and if you're mixing on a dark or black background, your colors can tend to look much lighter than they actually are. So working on a middle gray of a neutral tone is much more suitable for accurate color mixing. So then once your paint dries, you're going to do a second coat and let that one dry. After your second coat has dried, you'll want to turn your glass over to see how the coverage is. Mine's a little bit streaky, and if yours is too, then you're going to want to do a nice thick third coat. And then let that one dry completely. Now once your third coat of paint is dry, you should have perfect coverage, and if I turn mine over, you can see that it does look a little bit streaky on camera, but in person it doesn't. And once we finish this up and we turn it over, it's going to look absolutely perfect, so don't worry about that. So now, once you turn over your glass, if you notice that any of that paint squished underneath the glass and dried there, you'll just want to clean that up with your paint scraper, and you can also clean up the edges of your glass with a utility knife or X-Acto knife. Just be really careful, obviously, whenever you're using sharp knives. Once you've gotten rid of any of that dried up paint, you're just going to want to clean the shiny side of your glass with some glass cleaner. And then next, we're going to want to protect the back side that we painted from getting all scratched up. So in this next step, we're going to cover it up. And to do that, we're going to use tape. You can use whatever type of tape you like, but I really do prefer to use duct tape because it's really strong, really durable, and it sticks really well. And bonus, you can get it in so many different colors, so you can use this to create a little bit of style on your paint palette. So place your glass with the painted side facing down and grab your roll of tape to measure a strip, making sure that it will fit across the entire width of your glass. Cut it and place it across your glass about 1/4 inch away from the edge, and you can just use your fingers or a straight edge, or if you have a bone folder like I'm using in the video, just smooth out any bubbles that you might see, and then flip your glass over and wrap that strip of tape around the back side of your palette and stick it to the painted side. Then you're just going to continue to cover the back side of your glass palette with strips of tape, making sure that you butt your pieces of tape up against one another, so you don't want to have any gaps between your strips of tape. And just cover the entire back this way. Once you've attached your final strip of tape, you may have more or less sticking above your glass than I do, and you'll just want to trim this tape with a nice sharp utility knife or craft knife so that you have only enough tape left over to wrap around your glass to create the same amount of border that you did on the other side. Once you've done that, you're going to use your knife to cut away any excess tape from either side of your palette. Now to finish the remaining edges of your palette, you're going to cut yourself a strip of tape that's slightly taller than the height of your glass palette, stick it to a surface that you can cut on, and cut 2 strips that are about 1 inch wide. Then on the front side of your palette, you're going to position the strip of tape along the edge to create the same width of a border that you have around the rest of your palette. Once that strip of tape is in place, you're going to flip your palette over and you're going to cut this little square of tape away from the outside edge and corner of your strip of tape on either side. Then you're going to take the long edge of that strip of tape, wrap it around your glass palette and stick it to the back side of your palette. Then you're going to grab each one of those tabs that we created on either side of your palette and wrap those around the back side of your palette and around that strip of tape that you just secured. Now follow the exact same steps for your remaining end, and that's it. You've got your own super inexpensive and super easy to make glass palette. So that's it for this video. I hope that you guys like it, and if you did, don't forget to click the thumbs up below. And if you found it helpful, don't forget to share. If you want to keep up with all of my latest videos, subscribe to my channel. It's really easy. Just click the subscribe button below, or you can click here on the screen and subscribe that way. I hope you guys all have a super awesome day, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!